We have about 18 people on so far. Hi, everybody. Okay, and it looks like we're good to go. All right, let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Integrative Nurse Coach Gathering webinar. I am Carly Mertz, and I'm so grateful you're here with us tonight. Today's webinar is called Financial Health, Business, Bedside, and Retirement. And we are diving into a topic that is essential for every nurse, financial empowerment. We know that financial wellness is a part of holistic well-being, and yet it's often something we don't talk about enough in our profession. So whether you're dreaming of starting your own nurse coaching business or building a hybrid career or staying at the bedside while planning retirement, today's webinar will offer some guidance and clarity for that. So we are thrilled to be joined by or with Shane Galante, a nurse and certified financial planner who brings a unique blend of healthcare, compassion, and financial expertise. Shane's mission is to make financial planning more approachable, transparent, and truly aligned with your life and values. Shane is the Chief Operating Officer and co-founder of CSG Financial. With a unique blend of experience in both healthcare and finance, Shane brings a heart-centered and strategic approach to financial planning. He has worked for the largest health system in Delaware and the state's leading wealth management firm, giving him a deep understanding of the financial needs of healthcare professionals. Originally from Oxford, Pennsylvania, Shane now lives in Havertown, Pennsylvania with his wife, Rosemary, their 3 children, Luke, Liam, and Kira, and their beloved mini Bernedoodle, Maya. Shane holds an MBA from Westchester University and is a certified financial planner. Driven by a commitment to financial integrity, transparency, and community, Shane co-founded CSG Financial to help individuals and families make empowered, values-aligned financial decisions. He believes financial planning is a lifelong journey and one he is honored to walk alongside his clients. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, Shane.
Thank you, Carly. Yeah, wow. Thanks for the warm introduction there. That's great.
So before we get started, I want to give everybody a chance just to get settled wherever you are, in your chair, your couch, your bed. Just get settled in your space and try to release any tension that you may be holding in your body, in your mind, wherever it is. And we can take a few slow, deep breaths together. So inhale deeply and exhale fully. We'll do that one more time. Inhale deeply and exhale fully. And just feel yourself arriving in this moment, surrounded by a community of like-minded nurses dedicated to growth and healing. And let's open our hearts and minds to the new wisdom that is going to be gifted to us tonight. So a little reminder to put your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll leave time at the end for discussion. So it's all you, Shane. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, Carly, thanks so much. Let me get these slides up here. All right, wonderful. Well, I am super excited to be here with everybody tonight, and I just want to give a big thank you to the Integrative Nurse Coach and Carly specifically for reaching out and bringing this idea to fruition. So a little bit about myself, outside of what Carly said, was I was a nurse for 5 years prior to becoming a certified financial planner. I worked at Christiana Hospital, the biggest hospital in Delaware. And back in 2021, I was having conversations with my wife, who is a nurse herself, actually, and she just graduated nurse practitioner school recently and passed her boards yesterday. So it's a big celebration this week for the Galantes. And part of the conversations we were having was my long-term future in nursing. And, I did not really see myself at the bedside, like when I graduated nursing school in 2017. And all through college and after college, I was really into finance and just really thought, investing, bettering your future, making sure you have a sound financial plan were just really important topics that not only nurses, but everyone should have advantage to. So I decided to leave nursing in 2021, started at one of the biggest wealth management firms in Delaware, worked there for about 3 years. And Steve, Zach, and myself, we started our own firm a little over a year ago. So it's been a little bit of a whirlwind here the last couple of years with my wife in nurse practitioner school, starting a business, and everything else we have going on with the three kids. But long story short, how this came about was we really try to bring a lot of education and focus to nurses specifically, not only because my wife and I have been in nurses' shoes and are nurses, but we just really want to give back to the field of nursing, make sure that the education is there because it's not in nursing school, as we all know. There's just not a lot of business courses, not a lot of personal finance that's offered through nursing school. And people will start making close to six figures, even more, starting out as a nurse and not really know what to do with it. Right. So, part of what we're going to talk through tonight is personal financial planning, business planning as a nurse, and then ultimately retiring. Okay. All right, so this is our team here. These are just our pictures, Steve, Zach, and myself. Just a little bit further into the story of how we started our own firm. So we are a fee-only firm, and essentially what that means is there's no commissions, nothing like that. There's no sales-driven goals or quotas for the three of us. We work for our clients and specifically for our clients. And that's something that unfortunately I was not a huge fan of leaving nursing was being looked at as like a salesperson, which was not in my blood as a nurse for sure. Um, so ultimately, after 3 years there, myself and Zach and Steve ended up making the decision to start our own firm, which was going to be what was best for our clients and for the three of us longer term. So our office is in Dover, Delaware. Personally, I live in Havertown, right outside of Philadelphia, but we can operate in all 50 states. We're able to give advice no matter where a client lives. So these six areas are really going to be the focus of the next 6, 7 slides that we talk through. And these are the areas of financial planning that you should focus on as a nurse, personally. First one is cash flow management that we'll talk through on a deeper level. But essentially, you want to make sure you know what's coming in the door every month and what's going out with expenses and how much you have left over at the end of the day. We run into a lot of clients that they really just don't know where the money's going. And it's so important to just have an idea of where your money's going and how you're using it. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to save and kind of get to where you want to be later in life. So that's part number one. Part number two is protection planning or insurance planning. And as a nurse, this is really important, especially, you get married, you have children, you have a lot of things that you want to start to protect, right? So we'll talk through that a little bit more here shortly. The next two areas are investment and retirement planning. And the reason why we break this up into two different areas is because the way you invest for retirement and the way you invest for shorter term goals are completely different. All right. And then the last two areas are tax and estate. So taxes will be your biggest bill of your lifetime. Our job is to try to educate you and coach you on how do we limit that, right? There's something called your effective tax rate, which is essentially how much for every dollar you make are you paying in tax. And our job is to get that number down as low as we can. And then lastly, estate planning, just making sure things are the way you want them to go. We don't write any wills, powers of attorney, things like that. We connect our clients with estate planning attorneys. And this is something we'll talk through with business planning too, because that is very important. So cash flow planning, you really want to pay yourself first. If you've never heard that term before, it's essentially just making sure you're the first bill that you pay and then you pay your rest of your bills afterwards. So we have seen people that have trouble with this where they adjust their lifestyle to how they want to live and then kind of try to save after. But if you automate the savings first, it's a lot easier to know what you can afford afterwards. Okay, so um, this includes how much you're contributing to your retirement account, how much you're putting in your savings, and then how much are you putting outside of those two areas, right? So rough numbers, if you're making 5,000 a month and your fixed expenses are 3,000, then we know you have $2,000 every month that can go towards debt, can go towards cash, can go towards travel plans, starting a business, whatever it may be. So figuring out what that cash flow number is very important to not only know for yourself, but to know how you can plan for your future. Student loans is a big topic that we get a lot of questions on. Specifically, what do I do after I graduate to pay these off, right? And there's a emotional and a financial aspect to both of them, to the loans. The financial side is how much do we have total in student loans? Are they federal? Are they private? What are the interest rates? Are we going to be working nonprofit? Are we going to start our own business? Are we going to be working at a for-profit hospital? Right? Because a lot of those questions, you need to know the answers in order to know what forgiveness options you have. Okay, so some people on this call may have heard of public service loan forgiveness. It's pretty much the most popular loan forgiveness program for federal student loans. And it is real. We have had clients that get it. It does take 10 years. You got to be working at a nonprofit hospital or an education or a nonprofit entity. Specifically, the client we had, she was a pharmacist. She worked in education. She was teaching. She had over 100,000 in debt. And right after COVID 2020, 2021, she was able to get all those loans forgiven. So a lot of these things you need to coordinate with where you're working to verify how long you've been working there, making sure you submit 120 qualified payments for it, and making sure that everything's verified and you're submitting all the paperwork correctly. So coming out of nursing school, or even if you're a career changer, go back to nursing later, you just really want to make sure that that student loan plan is really written correctly for you. Um, we even have some clients that they've changed the way they're filing their taxes just to ensure that they either qualify for the loan forgiveness or that their student loan payment's lower, right? So um, this is all part of planning, and specifically with student loans, right now there's a lot up in the air still. A lot of student loans are on hold. We're not even sure exactly when they're going to go back into force a lot of the times. And we're not sure, next administration if things could change again, right? So this is just something you want to be on top of, making sure you're taking advantage of any forgiveness programs that are out there. There actually was another client we had that they were working at a drug and alcohol center that had a specific program. If you worked there for 5 years, they would pay the rest of your loans off. So there are opportunities and there's options out there specifically for nurses and medical professionals. You really just want to make sure you're doing your due diligence and taking advantage of it. And lastly, there is a 20 to 25-year forgiveness track. I don't want to go too deep into the specifics here, but if you don't qualify for the public service loan forgiveness program, there are options for you to get loans forgiven after 20 to 25 years through a different payment plan. So protecting your license and lifestyle. This is again what I talked about earlier, protecting from the what ifs. So insurance planning is a big part of finance. So at CSG Financial, we don't help any clients with life insurance. We don't sell insurance, right? But we give a lot of guidance and consultation on it. And this is honestly some of the biggest risks that come to nurses, right? Make sure you're taking advantage of the group benefits that are offered through your employer, specifically the life and disability. It's going to be the cheapest, lowest cost option for you. Okay. Part of the problem with that, though, is if you go out and start your own business, you leave that employer, you lose that coverage. And that a lot of times is one of the biggest costs for people when they leave is going out in the private marketplace, getting their health insurance, owning their own life insurance, disability, things like that. But after big life events, having a child, buying a home, getting married, those are the times where you really want to review your plan and say, what can go wrong? Where's the risks and how do we protect them or transfer them? Because at the end of the day, that is what insurance is there for. You're transferring the risk from you self-insuring it to a company insuring it. And then lastly, reviewing your malpractice and insurance coverages is a big one, especially if you go out and you become a nurse coach or you become private practice, or there's areas out there that you don't have the coverage that you would if you're a W-2 employee, um, or in a different role. You really want to make sure you're protected. God forbid something were to come back or somebody were to sue you and try to have a lawsuit. Um, so again, these are all areas where we give consultation on and we connect people with the right business brokers or insurance brokers, but we don't help with insurance on an individual level like that. All right. So retirement and investing, the fun stuff, right? Nobody likes to talk about, paying student loans, protecting their future and insurance. A lot of people come to us and they say, "Hey, how can I retire at 50? How can I start earning the most amount of money I can with the money I have?" Right? So we're going to talk through a couple different types of investment accounts and retirement accounts. I'll start on the right here first. So a brokerage account, if you've never heard of one, is essentially an account that you have invested and it's not tied to retirement and it's generally not going to be in cash. So these are very, very good accounts for 3+ year goals. So give you an example, my wife and I, we want to, beach house eventually. This would be the account that we would put money in to help try to grow and outpace inflation and be there for when we need a down payment for a future house. We generally don't tell people to start these types of accounts until they have 3 to 6 months of fixed expenses saved. The reason we say 3 to 6 months of fixed expenses saved is because that's your emergency fund. You can get away with 3 months if you have two incomes in the household. Okay, so my wife and I, we both work. We have 3 months saved. God forbid one of us is out of work for 2, 3 months. We have that cash cushion. Now, if you're single, you're the only income coming in the door, you really should stick with 6 months because it gives you more of a buffer. God forbid you're out of work. And that's again, if you don't have your emergency fund saved, then it doesn't really make sense to start investing that money because you might need it for an emergency. The next account I'll talk through is an employer-sponsored retirement plan. So generally, these are going to be a 401k, 403b if you're at a nonprofit hospital, but these are set up through your employer. These are awesome because it's completely automated through your paycheck. A lot of times they come with a match, usually it can be between 1 to 10%, right? Easy math. If you're making $100,000 and they match 6%, that's $6,000 every year that they're going to give you to your retirement account just for saving inside of that account. So we don't like to give blanket recommendations, but generally, if you're starting a job or at an employer, getting that match, it's quote unquote free money, right? It's generally a good idea to get that match. So the way you contribute to your retirement accounts will dictate if you get a tax deduction or if you pay the tax on it. So there's two ways you can save towards retirement, pre-tax or Roth. So generally, if you're a high income earner, we like to see you contribute pre-tax because you'll get the tax deduction. But if you're in a lower tax bracket, that's generally when we tell people, look, it might make sense to pay the tax now while you're in a lower tax bracket, especially if you're going to go on and start your own business and increase your income twofold, or you're going to go on and be a CRNA, or you're going to be a nurse practitioner, whatever it may be. If you have a future of making higher income and being in a higher tax bracket, you probably want to pay the tax now on those retirement contributions. And then lastly, Roth IRAs. You might have heard about this on TikTok, Facebook, but it is a very, very good retirement savings vehicle. So every dollar you put in there will grow tax-free and you can take it out tax-free after the age of 59 and a half, right? The maximum contribution is 7,000 for the year, and there is limitations to how you can contribute to the account. So if you start to make over 230 to 240 as a joint household, you have to start doing what's called a backdoor Roth IRA. Just an extra step. You get to open up a traditional IRA, contribute it there, and then move it to the Roth the next day. If you're single income earner and you're earning around 150,000, that's when you start to phase out to be able to contribute to it directly. So this, again, this is set up individually. This is not tied to your employer at all. So we have a lot of clients that they have their employer sponsored retirement plan and they have their IRA set up individually. So you can have both. And generally, we are big fans of having both for the future. So investing. This is, I think, one of the biggest disservices that we get in nursing school is we just don't know what we should be doing or how we should be investing. But if you've never heard this term before, I think it's a great one. And it's diversification is the only free lunch in investing. And essentially, what it is saying is not putting all your eggs in one basket, having a long-term approach, and making sure you have the end in mind, right? So just to talk a little bit about the markets, right? The last couple of months, the stock market's been extremely volatile, just with current administration, tariffs, things like that. But if you had sold out March, April when market was down, the market's already back up to where it was in the beginning of the year. So a lot of what we do with clients is just behavioral coaching, right? Making sure they stay invested when they don't want to be invested. We had a client that reached out and they said, "Hey, I really want to short the market." And we had to tell them, look, this is like the worst time to try to short the market. So again, our biggest job when it comes to investing is to educate, teach people how to invest using generally low cost index funds, ETFs, or mutual funds. And then lastly, investing in yourself pays a lot of dividends too, right? So let's say you're a brand new nurse, you're working in ICU, right? Getting your CCRN, getting that extra certification that'll get you a few extra dollars an hour, or going out and getting certified as a nurse coach, right? To start your own business. Whatever it may be, investing in yourself will pay out a lot more generally than a lot of other investments, in my opinion. So we like to call this the Skittles chart, and it generally just shows asset class returns year to year. And the main concept I want to get across here is twofold. If you look at the bottom here, this purple box is cash, right? So you can see in 2009, cash did 0.1%, 2010, 0.1%, 2012, 0.1%. We have a lot of clients that just have a lot of cash or they're saving a lot and they just don't know what to do with it. And we have a lot of clients that they just don't know how to invest, right? So the biggest takeaway from this is you just need to be diversified, right? A lot of people think that um, they need to pick the next Amazon or Tesla or Facebook. And that's generally not how people get wealthy over the long term. Generally, people get wealthy by sticking to a plan and having a long-term vision. So this white box here is what we would call a proper asset allocation portfolio. And again, it doesn't do as well as the top performing asset class per year, but over the long run, it helps mitigate so much risk and it helps keep you invested. Because the problem is a lot of people tend to not invest because they think of how risky it could be, right? Or they don't want to lose money. But over the long run, the stock market is the best creator of wealth. Okay. So the S&P 500 generally on average has done 10%. in the history of the S&P. So this is something that, again, we try to get nurses educated on how to invest, where to put their money, and have a long-term approach, especially for when it comes to retirement savings. So taxes, again, this is going to be the single biggest bill that you will have, whether you're working W-2 at a hospital or you own your own business. So I just want to pull your attention here to these tax brackets for this year. So if you're married filing jointly, you and your husband each are making pretty good money, and you make over $206,000 and seven 206 700 I'm sorry, $206,000, you then jump into the 24% tax bracket. Okay, so one of the things I hear the most is you don't want to make more money because you're going to have to pay more tax when you make more money. The thing is that you only pay 24% tax on every dollar you make over this amount, right? So as soon as you start making over that amount, every dollar starts to get taxed at 24%. So don't hold yourself back from making more money because you think you're going to pay more in taxes. All right. And that's part of what we try to do is control our tax bracket, where we might say, hey, we're on that cusp here. We're going to start making over this amount. Let's put more into our retirement account that'll lower our tax burden and then effectively lower our tax rate moving forward. Right. So again, part of planning, and I just want to make that distinction there on how you are taxed, because that again is, I think, very important to understand. One of the other big things to understand is how our withholdings on our W-4. We have some clients at the end of the year, they owe $10,000. And unfortunately, some of it was just not having the correct withholdings on how they were getting paid on their W-4. Right. And then we have other clients that get a $10,000 refund, which we don't really like to see that either. If we were, best case scenario, we would like to see our clients get no money back after they file their taxes. Because if you get that much money back at the end of the year, you're just giving the IRS interest-free loan there. So another one, should we be filing married or separate? Again, this is all in conjunction with a CPA or tax advisor. We don't file taxes for our clients. We do give limited tax advice. But that is something where we do talk with CPAs as well. And then again, should we be contributing Roth, pre-tax? Should we be contributing to HSA accounts, dependent care FSAs? Those types of things are all questions that we want answered when it comes to tax planning. So estate planning, this is really overlooked when it comes to financial planning, specifically for people that have kids, families, businesses. People don't realize how wrong things could go if you don't have these things tidied up, right? So it's a morbid topic, but having a will, healthcare directive, powers of attorney are really, really important. We don't draft those for clients, but we make introductions where need be. And specifically as nurses and medical professionals, we see tragedies all the time. If you're a nurse, your family's calling you to try to help out with, family members on hospice care, people that are sick and they need your consultation, right? So as a nurse specifically, you want to make sure your estate planning is done. That way, God forbid something is going wrong, you at least have those documents in place and things will go to your wishes and not the stated wherever you're living, right? So there's another saying out there, if you don't have a plan in place, a plan will be made for you. And we just don't want any of our clients to have to be put in that position. All right. So nursing and business. So majority of the people on this call are probably either a nurse coach, a nurse thinking about changing careers, or maybe you were a nurse and now you run a business, right? Like me. So nursing is really a quintessential start a business career. And the reason why I say that is there's so many nurses that work their 312s and they can still do whatever they want to do the rest of the time that they have during the week, right? It's pretty amazing, honestly, that personally myself, like I currently am doing that, right? I still work a couple days a week as a nurse just to help pay some of the bills while business in startup mode, and my wife was in nurse practitioner school. And then the days I'm not working, all I'm doing is focusing on the business, right? So again, if you're thinking about being a nurse coach, nurse practitioner, starting your own business, whatever it may be, don't discount how crucial being a nurse is and working the 2 to 3 12s or PRN or whatever it may be. So I've worked with a lot of nurses that are not nursing anymore, and it's amazing the amount of different types of roles that they're in. About a month ago, I had a buddy of mine that I worked with, and he called me. And he was travel nursing. He said, "Hey, my wife's uncle is retiring, and he's selling his plumbing business, and I'm going to take it over." And I was like, "That's amazing! Like, incredible! Like, he's a nurse, and now he's going to be a plumber." So I think one of the things I struggled with when I first left nursing was um, not a stigma, but having that identification as a nurse and trying to talk to people about things that you weren't as a nurse, right? So, like, one of the biggest challenges I had was I started as a financial planner, and in my head, all the people I was working with at the hospital, they were going to become clients. Obviously, they did not over the course of the coming year or two afterwards, because it takes time to build up credibility. I had to obviously get my MBA, certified financial planner, those types of things. But that's the same thing for any nurse that's getting out of nursing, whether you're going to be a realtor, plumber, photographer, whatever it may be. It just takes time to build that up, right? But don't hold yourself back just because of the money aspect, or you don't want to take that risk, right? Which we'll talk about a little bit here, is that the risk of starting a business. Um, all right, so things to do. Definitely assess the timing that's involved, and it's always going to be more than you think, right? Running a business is more than a full-time job. All right. So you just want to make sure you know that ahead of time, because if you think, I can work these 2, 3, 12-hour shifts and still have the time to do everything else, you want to make sure you do have that time, because it is a lot and it can burn you out. The second thing would be to understand your financial runway. And this is a big one, because a lot of times if you're going to start a business or you're going to leave what you're doing, you're going to take a big pay cut and you're going to take a setback. All right. Personally, when I left nursing completely, 3, 4 years ago when I started, my income the first year after I left went from 6 figures to about 30, 40,000. And I knew that going into it, but it's scary. All right. Especially when you have 2, 3 kids, things are just, life happens, right? So you want to make sure you understand financially, can you take that risk? All right. And again, if you're working 3 12-hour shifts or per diem somewhere and you have that income coming in the door, then you probably have that financial stability to start your own business or open up a consulting firm, whatever it may be. Obviously, speak with your family, your partners, have people involved in this decision outside of yourself. My wife, I do thank her a lot, because she did give me a lot of encouragement and, was able to kind of help me get through that part to get over the hump of making that decision. Consult with a CPA, business attorney, and ideally a financial planner when thinking about starting all these things. You want to make sure, first off, taxes, again, you have that set in place where you know what the tax liabilities are going to be. If you're working W-2 at a hospital and you start making 1099 income or start your own business, it's going to increase your tax burden significantly if you're making good money on the side. So you want to consult with the CPA, talk through how to set things up properly for the business, and make sure you're not crushing yourself in taxes when it comes to tax season. Business attorney is very important as well. Just help you with operating agreement, how to set up the business, consult with you on a lot of different things there. And then lastly, you just want to learn and understand your business inside and out. All right. Whether you're opening up a home care agency, again, being a nurse coach, whatever it may be, you just really want to understand how that business operates to put you in the best position to be successful. Right. So just doing analysis for different people in that role locally, right? Like one of the things I did was I reached out to some financial advisors and planners because there's nobody in my family that does this, and I just wanted to get an idea of what it was like, right? What you have to do. I would suggest you do the same thing if that's what you're thinking about, right? If you're thinking about getting your realtor's license and doing that on the side, talk to some realtors. Don't just go out and get your license and try to start doing it. Definitely talk to some people about what it's like to do that role and really learn the business. So, financial steps to take. Part of speaking with the CPA and getting all these things in line is a business formation, right? So depending on how your business is set up, whether you have partners, whether it's yourself, whether you're giving advice, whether it's a service, you want to make sure your business is set up properly from a liability standpoint, but also from a tax standpoint, right? So I'm not going to dive into this too much tonight, but a C corp generally they're double taxation. Um, so you're taxed at 21, 22% as a corporation, and then you're taxed again on a personal level. So generally, C corps, they're not as favorable to have as a business formation when you're first starting. Project your expenses, profits, cash flow, those terms really is the lifeblood for your business and for your financial life. Going back to the personal financial planning, if you're spending everything you make per month, there's nothing left over to either save, invest, or put towards your future. Same thing goes for your business. If you're spending everything that you're making as a business, it's really hard to sustain the business or profit from it. So you really want to get an idea of, hey, I'm going to start this business. Is there a lot of overhead that goes into it? Or as a nurse coach, maybe there's not, right? Maybe it's just business formation, getting proper technology and legal structures in place, and just going out and getting clients and contracts in place. And then tax liabilities we talked through a lot, and ultimately you want to utilize your business to help save for retirement. Okay, and this is where we see a lot of people that struggle is they just don't know where to put their money they're making through the business for their future. They put it all back into the business, right? So you can go out and set up your own retirement accounts through the business. There's things like a SEP IRA or a solo 401k. Again, they can be massive for tax deductions, but they also are going to really help you save longer term for retirement, right? So again, that's something we consult with our clients and CPAs, figuring out what's the right amount to put in those accounts to make sure you're saving for your future. And then ultimately preparing to retire. So the questions you want to ask are, when do you want to retire? And then how are you going to get there? We do have some people that come to us and they say, Shane, I want to retire next year. It's a lot harder for us to help make a plan for somebody to retire in a year than it is, 30 or 40 years. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the earlier you get started, the higher the impact will be. The first dollar you put away will be worth the most in retirement. All right. And that's not to say if you come to us today, we're not going to help you retire in a year. It's just to say it gives us less time to help optimize how much you're saving or your investment game plan. So preparing early to figure out when you want to retire is huge. Bucketing your money is a big concept that we talk through too. So when we talked about those different types of investment accounts, really the way you want to look at it is you have cash, you have your brokerage, and then you have your retirement savings, right? So cash is great, completely liquid, doesn't earn a lot, but it's there when you need it. Brokerage account is generally taxed at lower rates, capital gains rates 15%. And then your retirement savings, you have the pre-tax and the Roth, right? So ultimately, what we can help clients do is control their tax bracket. All right, somebody gets to age 65, they retire. We can start to say, hey, let's use cash this year, right? And a little bit of pre-tax money to keep your tax bracket at 12%. right? And then we're slowly taking money out of those pre-tax accounts. And then at age 70, we can start using the tax-free bucket and pay no tax. Different strategies like that that we talk through to ultimately lower that lifetime effective tax rate for clients. And look, Social Security, Medicare, pensions, retirement savings, these are all things that are huge when it goes into a retirement plan. Social Security, I know there's a lot of people that are on the edge about that, the future of it. Personally, I think it's going to be there. I think it's too important to a lot of Americans. But one of the things we talked through too is when to turn on Social Security. There are some business owners that they can shoot themselves in the foot longer term because they don't show enough income that their Social Security benefits worthwhile for them. So they end up having to work a little bit longer because, unfortunately, they weren't showing enough income to qualify for a good Social Security payment. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. But ultimately, where we come in is say, when is the right time to turn on Social Security? If you're still working and you turn it on, you could be taxed as much as 85% of the Social Security you're taking it home. So again, just things that we have conversations about with clients. Pensions, they're not around as much as they used to be. My wife, she works for Mainline Health, and they do have a very small pension plan. If you have one where at your employer, just be very lucky that you have one. I think Johnson and Johnson is one of the other companies that I know still has a pretty competitive one. Um, but ultimately, with Social Security and your retirement savings, you're trying to create your own pension that you never have to run out of money. All right. And that's essentially what we try to help clients with is to never run out of money in retirement. So now we're kind of coming up here on 45 minutes. So just wanted to spend the last couple minutes here on, if you are thinking about working with an advisor or planner, like how much would that cost, right? Or what to look out for. So us specifically at CSG Financial, we're a fee only firm. What that means again is we don't get commissions, we don't do any insurance. And unfortunately, from my experience, medical professionals can be targeted, especially physicians, high income earning roles. Specifically when it comes to life insurance too. I know there's a lot on TikTok about that stuff. So that's something we get clients. They send us things like, "Hey, have you heard of this?" Or, "What are your guys' thoughts on this?" And it's kind of funny because a lot of it is just not true. So you just got to be careful with where you're getting that info from. But going back to, if you were to hire somebody, what that would look like, we generally have two different relationships that people engage us in. First one's more like a retainer, like an attorney, and that ranges from like 150 to 500 a month. If you own a business, that is a tax deductible expense to the business. And essentially what we do in that relationship is give advice on anything associated with a dollar sign, right? So, hey, Shane, how much should I be saving for retirement? How much should I be saving for my kids in a 529? Am I projected to retire at age 55 when I want, or 60, or whatever it may be? Right. So again, that's what we're there for. We're just on retainer and there as a consultant. The second one is more like a traditional investment management scenario. So, if somebody is age 50, they leave their employer, they have their old retirement plan. A lot of times we help implement moving that to an IRA, managing it for them, and we charge 1% to help manage that account and get it invested for them. And then lastly, a one-time financial plan. This is for somebody that's just like, hey, I really don't want to work with you guys for a long time. I just kind of want to know if I'm okay and just give me a blueprint. And we just charge them like a one-time, 1,500 to 5,000 for that. So I know we're coming up on 45 minutes here. Hopefully you guys found this conversation very insightful and helpful. This is something that CSG has here, just a webinar evaluation. If you guys can take a couple minutes, fill it out. Main reasons for this is to figure out, are there things that we didn't talk about that you guys would want to hear in a future webinar, or just thoughts in general about anything financial. So I'll kind of wrap it up here, Carly, because pretty much coming right up to 45 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much. I know I learned so much. I hope everybody else did. I think I can speak for everybody and say that they did too. We'll get into the questions though. I do see some coming up. So if anybody has any questions, remember to type them in the Q&A. So the first question is if you have a pension and also a non-matched 401k, is it worth it to do the 401k or put it elsewhere? They've been investing for 25 plus years already.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it would really, and it's funny because there's a saying in finance, it depends. Like you get that answer a lot, but it really does depend on how much you're making, how much you already have saved for retirement. So, if you're making over six figures and they don't match, you can get more money away in a 401k plan for a tax deduction than you can in an IRA, right? Because the IRA is limited to 7,000. So the 401k, you can actually do 23,500 into it, right? So if you're making significant amount of money, like, over 150, 200, it probably would still make sense to put money into the 401k just for the tax deduction. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is a lot of 401k plans in their provisions, you can access them at age 55 without paying a 10% penalty. So some of the clients that we have that they want to retire early, we still have them put money into a 401k because they can use it at age 55 and not pay the 10% penalty. So have to pay the tax if it's pre-tax, but that's just another thought there.
Thank you. So the next question, how do you pay Social Security when you own your own business?
So your Social Security tax, it's part of the taxes that you pay through the business. So if you already have your business established, you'll be seeing this come out of your payroll and the taxes that you pay, Social Security tax. Um, and but essentially what that factors into is how much you get as a benefit later, right? So it does cap out. I think it's around like 165,000 is the cap for it. Um, but once you make over that, you don't have to worry about the Social Security tax. But that's how it factors into what your Social Security benefit will be later. Um, so hopefully that helps a little bit. I can give you like numbers on that at a different time.
Yes, thank you. So someone asked for the survey link because they're on their phone. So I put it in the chat. If anybody isn't able to scan that, go to the chat and click that link to take the survey. And then somebody else said, very insightful. Thank you for your time and encouragement for the future. That's nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes. So I think that is all for tonight. So thank you so much, Shane, for sharing your story and all your insights and your guidance with us tonight. And also, thank you for your willingness to offer a free financial plan to one of the nurses that came on Zoom live tonight.
Of
So,
course.
yes, that is so exciting. We're so grateful for you. So the winner should expect to hear from us by getting an email, and we'll put a little social media post on. So make sure you're following Inca on social media, and we'll post who the lucky winner is. And thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. Your presence here means you're investing in yourself now and in the future. So keep showing up for yourself. And I hope to see you all here at the next Integrative Nurse Coach Gathering webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, everybody.